I have with me on the phone a man who's become a living legend among pro-freedom circles, a man named Mark Kessler. He is the police chief of Gilberton, Pennsylvania. Early on in January of this year, he took a very adamant stand for the Second Amendment in light of certain moves that were happening in our federal government to do things that would compromise the integrity of the Second Amendment, according to many pro-freedom advocates. Chief Kessler, it is an honor to have you on the phone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, let me say it is a common knowledge that you're a strong supporter of the natural right guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution of private citizens to own firearms in order to protect themselves and secure their freedom. Now, how far do you think we should take this? Is there a line somewhere in terms of the Second Amendment? Like, are there guns that we should be able to own, and are there guns that we should not be able to own?
If you read the Constitution, particularly the Second Amendment, it doesn't define what we can and can't have, period. The Constitution was set up for we the people to have the same capacity as the military. I'm a strong believer in if you want it, you should be able to have it. And I don't need a court or a Supreme Justice or a government to tell me what I can and can't own when it comes to keep and bear arms. Now, arms could be many different things. An arm could be what you want it to have to protect yourself or protect your family or fight for your country and fight for your freedom. It could be a crossbow, a sword, a dagger, a machine gun, or a handgun. It's up to you. It's about freedom. That's what it's all about here. And they don't have the power to regulate any arms.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if you look at that Second Amendment, not only does it say that the right to bear arms shall not be infringed, it also says, and for the institution of a well-regulated militia. Now, how do you interpret that clause?
Well, as you know, our founding fathers, we didn't have a military. We had what we called the militia back then. We the people. We the people are the militia. We are the military. I guess you could say that the military now is us. We the people. Back then it was the militia, and even today, it's a fair shake to say that we the people are still the militia. There's nothing in the Constitution preventing anyone from starting militia. Now, the left wing would say, all these militia groups and patriot groups, they want to overthrow the government. That's not what I'm about. I'm not about to overthrow anybody. I'm about drawing my line in the sand and saying enough is enough. You're infringing on my rights, and I've had it. And I hope everybody across this country has had it.
Well, sure. Yeah, and like I spoke to you earlier, I'm the website that I run, the TRANSEGOIST Daily Journal, it's a news organization that's also has a philosophical bent. Now, that having been said, I mean, let's talk about that for a second since we're on the subject. When we talk about the government, if you look at our Constitution and you look at what it's based on, it's basically based on some Enlightenment ideas that basically said, look, the government should exist in order to protect the individual, his person, and his property. Would you agree with that?
I don't know if the government should be responsible to protect anybody. I think it's everybody's own responsibility to protect themselves.
Yeah.
And protect their own property. I don't need to. We shouldn't have to depend on the government for anything. And the way the Constitution was set up and the way our government was set up, the federal government should have the least power.
No, I stand corrected.
The most power.
I stand corrected. What I should have said is it behooves the federal government to prosecute people who violate the person and property of others. But then
exactly.
Yeah, you're right on that.
Yeah, you're right on that. I would agree with that. It's the federal government is set up to prosecute those who violate the Constitution.
Right.
Who violate the laws of the land. And you're right on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're on the same page there. All right. Well, in terms of you making this decision to take a strong stand for the Constitution in general and the Second Amendment in particular, is there a particular event on the part of the current administration that prompted you to take such a strong public stance, or was it a decision that was the result of a cumulative effect over time? If it's the former, then what was the event that was the final trigger for you?
Well, I always watch politics very closely throughout my career as a police officer, and in particularly the last 4 years, well, I should say the last 8 years, actually, even with the Patriot Act. I don't agree with the Patriot Act. They used that horrific act of terrorism in New York City to bestow a unjust, unconstitutional law upon the American people, where they can just, they don't need anything anymore, basically. If they just deem you as a terrorist, you know, they're going to scoop you up and you're off, and without a trial, without anything, definitely detain you forever.
Yeah.
You know, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
This is America. This isn't Russia or China or North Korea. Now, the last 4 years, I knew the current sitting president has been very anti-gun just from his voting history when he was a senator.
Sure.
He was very quiet on the subject for the first 4 years of his term. Now, when he got reelected, and the reason why, and I truly believe the reason why he was so quiet on the rights to keep and bear arms and the Second Amendment, because he didn't want to frighten the public. The gun owners might be sitting on the fence, like, you know.
Oh, can you see him having getting elected after having, if he had proposed this in his first administration, can you see him it even being close? I mean, there's no way.
He would have never got elected a second term. I truly believe that in my heart. I mean, he didn't win by much in the second election. Not that we had a great choice on the field to pick from, you know, for presidents. But he made it. I don't know how, you know, with the debt spiraling out of control. But when the straw that broke my back was when he came out, and his administration came out, and then Feinstein and Pelosi and all the rest of the tyrants in Washington came out and said, you know, this horrific act that was committed by an ill person is justification that we strip America's rights, that we strip the American law-abiding Americans guns, that we're, you know, Mrs. and Mrs. America, as Frankenstein stated, you know, we're coming to take your guns.
Oh, man, that phrase has been shoved down her throat. I bet she regrets saying that so much. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, well, I really don't believe she even cares. Like, she's a self-serving deviant, just like the rest of them out there in Washington. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. You know, they all sleep in the same bed in my eyes.
That's true to a large extent.
Yeah, this is about we the people. This is about you and I, brother. This is about, you know, what the party wants you to do.
Have you seen Senator Feinstein's Facebook page?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, if you want to have a little bit of a chuckle, go visit it sometime. You would not believe the amount of hate she's getting. Like, for every person that comes out and says, you know, even defends her a little bit, there's 10 people that are, you know, basically railing against her because of her stance against guns. I visited it one time, and it was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. I didn't even know she had a Facebook page. Oh yeah. You know, but they speaking of Facebook, I guess I'm too American to be on Facebook. They keep kicking me off. So, that's why I joined the other one. Oh yeah, let's take a minute to plug that site, by the way, since you mentioned that. For anybody listening, go visit awarenessact.com. It is an alternative to Facebook, and I'm telling you, once you get on there, you will never leave. It is beyond addicting. It is a great site. And I know the kid who started it. He's just a young kid, but man, he's doing a great job. And if he's doing this now, I can't wait to see what he's doing 5-10 years down the road. He's an amazing guy, and I love the website that he set up. So go check it out, awarenessact.com. One word, awarenessact.com. Check it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So absolutely. I'm with you on all of that. There was something else that you kind of brought up that I wanted to bring up, but I don't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come back to me. But moving on. So we've talking about banning guns. We've talking about, you know, they want to have a lot of regulations on what kind of guns you can have, and it seems to me like these regulations that they're trying to push must be stemming from ignorance, or else, more sinisterly, they're taking advantage of the ignorance of their constituents. One or the other. I'm not really sure which.
They don't care what we say.
Yeah.
They're going to do what they want to do. And when you have, my heart goes out to those poor victims up in Connecticut. That was totally uncalled for.
Sure.
But what happened up there was an absolute national tragedy, and my heart goes out for them. But you have parents of the victims coming out in support of the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms. So I don't know where they're getting these. I know where they're getting it from. They're just coming from that democratic machine.
Sure. That
left-sided liberal thinking. That government knows best, and you shouldn't own guns. Only law enforcement and the military should own firearms, and I have a problem with that.
Right.
I have a huge problem with that.
Well, look at this too. I mean, if I had a kid and my kid went to school and was killed or was just shot with a gun, my first reaction would be, how come I wasn't able to protect my child?
Exactly. Exactly. They have armed guards at banks.
Yeah.
They have, armed guards all over the country. At nightclubs, they have armed guards.
Yeah.
But they don't, for some reason,
Yeah, our kids don't rate armed guards. Yeah. I
have a hard time with that.
Our clubs rate armed guards, but our kids don't. It is what it is.
Exactly.
So
we changed that in our local school district. Now we have actual police officers in our buildings here, because I was a champion.
Yeah.
I championed that to get armed guards in our school buildings prior to the Sandy School shooting massacre up in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So early in the beginning of September, we had armed police officers in our school buildings out here in our local school district, and I was the one that pushed hard for that.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
Our children, period.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done on that, by the way. Well done. And it's great. It's great that you have a local legislature and local government that'll support you in all this. I mean, that's really awesome. That
not all of them are supportive.
Well, I'm sure not all of them.
The sheriff is he's not on board. He's not a constitutional sheriff, and he's a man that believes he's another crony that believes that people's right to keep and bear arms should be infringed, and he's the one that will come and take your gun and shoot you with his. And hopefully he gets knocked out of office. He's up for re-election this year, and hopefully it's because he's so anti-gun. I've been helping to spread the word on that and back the other guy that's pro-gun, just so we don't have a dictatorship sheriff any longer. This is ridiculous. It's gone way too far in politics.
Tell me a little bit about your town, because I've talked to a few. Okay, as you know, I've done kind of journalism on the side I haven't gotten serious about it until pretty recently. Actually, I got serious about journalism right about the same time you got serious about protecting the really being aggressive about protecting the Constitution on a national level, and for the same reason. I've been a libertarian for a long time, and this whole push to regulate / registrate guns really put me over the edge. I was quiet for a long time, but when that happened, I started getting really aggressive, for the same reasons you have. And I applaud
you for that, sir. I have to applaud you for that, because one person's actions, can make a difference.
Well, I haven't made a difference to the extent that you have yet, but I'm trying to pull my weight too, and I know a lot of people are. But I mean, having done some journalism, I've run across some people from Pennsylvania, and they tend to be, the ones I've met tend to be really pro-liberty, especially if they live out in more rural areas. Would you say that your constituents are kind of those more rural conservative / constitutionalist libertarian kind of people, or are they more?
I'd have to say that the people I serve and work for, and even where I live and raise my family in, are very pro-gun, pro-freedom. A lot of them don't believe that the government should be encroaching on every aspect of one's life. And sure. I'm a firm believer in that too. I don't want the government in my life as much as they are. You know, when you have this crazy lunatic up in New York, the mayor of New York telling people that they can only buy, you know, so many ounces of Coca-Cola or Pepsi or whatever soft drink you want. That's ridiculous. I mean, you know, my best advice to these people, these anti-American, let's not make a mistake here. These people that are doing this to us, to people that love their country, they're not Americans. They're anti-Americans. They need to get on a boat and find a nearest dictatorship country, and I'm sure they will be welcomed with open arms.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, let them go to Cuba or Venezuela or Colombia or Mexico or Canada. Get out of my country.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at it this way. I mean, you know, it's this country defends your right to free speech and free expression. But if you run for political office and you get political office, the first thing you do is swear an oath on the Bible to the Constitution.
You're absolutely right.
So, I mean, if you're anti-constitutionalist, well, then you're not fit for office in this country.
Absolutely. All these politicians, like I said, Mayor Bloomberg and his thugs, with his mayors against illegal guns, and that's a sham.
Yeah.
I debated them for over an hour on TV, and boy, I tell you what, they had no idea. The Mayor Bloomberg sucks these poor people into believing that there's illegal guns out there, and I want to set the record straight. There's no such thing as an illegal gun.
Yeah.
Just because a gun is stolen doesn't make it illegal. The gun is just reclassified as stolen. You know, I'll tell you a case I had where I recovered a stolen gun out of North Carolina here in Pennsylvania after a car chase in the whole 9 yards. Now, the person who had the gun was a habitual offender, felon 10 times over. He stole the gun from North Carolina. Now, the gun itself wasn't illegal.
Right.
The person was.
Yeah.
I returned the gun. I had to return the gun.
Just like
to the owner down in North Carolina.
Yeah. A car doesn't become illegal when it gets broken into and stolen. It's not it's not an illegal car.
If somebody steals a car isn't illegal.
Yeah.
The car is a legal car. It's the person who took the car that commits the illegal act.
That's correct.
You know, I had a great debate the other day with one of our commissioner, and he was on board with Mayor Bloomberg's gun grabbing group. I asked him, I said, you know, why are you against the Second Amendment? He said, I'm not. I'm just against the illegal guns. And I explained to him that you can't walk into a store and buy an illegal gun. You can't. It's impossible. They don't sell illegal guns. All guns are legal. At one point in time, they're all legal.
Well, you have to have an FFL just to sell guns, and you know, you do that, you know, you get scrutinized pretty hard if you have an FFL.
Exactly. You know, and he came back with, well, I'm against the stolen guns that go out and kill people. Yeah. And my response to that was, I tried to keep my face as straight as possible. I responded to him. I said, sir, you're blaming an inanimate object. It's the gun the gun didn't go out and commit the crime on itself. The gun is inanimate. You can lay that gun on a shelf and it won't move for 100 years unless somebody makes it move.
That's it.
I said you're blaming the inanimate object instead of the person that's committing the crime. Yep. And he walked away. He didn't have nothing to say about it.
You know, I've owned my guns for years, and they have never hurt anybody. They've hurt some animals that turned into food, but I tell you, they never hurt anybody.
I hear you.
Yeah, but anyway, how do you feel about gun registration along those lines?
You know, again, that goes back to the Constitution.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
nothing in the Constitution that says anything should be regulated.
Yep.
Any kind of arms should be regulated at all, or registered, or anything like that. Every law that they've passed, and there's about 20,000 gun laws on the books right now across the country. I mean, at the federal level, there's about 20,000, and every single law is unconstitutional. Yeah. There's nothing that gives the Congress or the Senate or the president the power to regulate arms. Period.
That reminds me. That reminds me about that thing that. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, if you go back into the early days of our country, you know, back in the Western days, they would arrest people, take their guns off them, throw them in jail for a couple days or a year or two or whatever, You know what the first thing they did when they got out of jail? They gave them their guns back.
Yep. Yeah, I heard
They
that.
gave them their guns back. That's what they used to do. Yeah, that's what they used to do. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives the government the power to regulate arms, period.
That's it. That's it. Well, that brings me back to a point that I was going to bring up and then forgot briefly when you were talking about the Patriot Act. Did you know that most of the people who signed the Patriot Act didn't even read it? Didn't even read it.
That surprised me.
Yeah. I mean, we'll look at Bob Barr, for example. Bob Barr is a member of the Libertarian Party now. He even ran for president as a Libertarian, I think it was in 2008. I think it was. And yeah, he was a conservative, and he voted for the Patriot Act, and you know that's and he's come out and said, look, I didn't even read the thing, and you know it's like the biggest regret of my life, you know, pretty much. Well, yeah, I don't know if he said of his life, but he came out very openly as, yeah, I regret that decision. It was a bad decision, and I'm not a member of the GOP anymore. But
yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's just,
I mean,
just like the healthcare law.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and here's the thing.
Unconstitutional too.
And here's the thing. These laws are monstrosities. I mean, you know, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's just hundreds upon thousands of pages. So, you know, I've fielded this idea that we should have a constitutional amendment that any law that passes through the legislature and the Congresses should be read aloud on the floor of both houses, and unless you are physically present as a legislator, as a congressman or as a senator, unless you are physically present on the floor listening to the entire reading of it from beginning to end, you may only vote no. You may not vote yes on that piece of legislation unless you have sat through the entire reading of it from beginning to end without stopping.
I support that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I would definitely support that. You know what it is? They're all about themselves, and you know how quick can they get out of that Capitol building and get on their jets and fly to wherever, going to play golf, you know, with Tiger Woods or whoever else
my God.
play golf with.
Yeah.
On our dime.
Oh, yeah. Which, you know, people keep on talking about, you know, how little they're actually there and how little they do and, you know, how much they get paid. You know, I would be okay with all of that if they weren't voting for all of these blatantly unconstitutional laws. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if they absolutely. If they accepted this constitutional amendment, you know, hell, I'd say give them a raise. Give them a raise. Let's double their salary, but from now on, they can't vote on anything that isn't read aloud on the floor and that they were physically present for.
I support that.
Yeah.
You know, I have a real problem with Democrats and Republicans.
Oh, yeah.
They all sleep in the same bed. They all go out to lunch together. They all shake hands behind closed doors. Yeah. But in the public eyes, they look like, they're at each other's throats. That's the farthest thing from the truth. You just look at the videos of John McCain and Shermer, and you know, there you have John McCain. He's supposed to be this great American hero, and you know, the Shermer, Chuck Shermer, the anti-American Democrat. Like, they're best friends. They're best buds. They're going on trips all over to visit this and visit that, and all we're trying to, you know.
Yeah.
Do a bipartisan nigga, it's bullshit.
I don't know about John McCain's history. I know that he was in Vietnam and whatever, and you know I respect him for that. But I mean, it's a travesty to call that man a conservative.
You're absolutely right. I agree with you on that. Yeah. It's time for him to retire.
Yeah.
It's time for him to go.
I agree.
I agree. I respect the man for fighting for his country. I respect any man that fights for his country. Once they cross that line, he took an oath. He keeps taking an oath, and he's violating that oath.
He is violating his oath, and he should be removed from office. Just like every other congressman and senator out there who swears an oath to the Constitution and then does the opposite.
You're absolutely right. The time to go. Yeah. Take off that lapel pin and put your resignation on the table, and out the door you go.
Yeah.
That's the way I am. That's the way I feel anymore. I really had it with these self-servient politicians. They disgust me, every one of them.
Yeah. And
I'm not a politician. I'm not a politician. I'm not running for any office or anything like that. These people, they are just blatantly spitting in the face of the American people, and I've had it.
Well, the beauty of your position, especially as it pertains to like the sheriff you're talking about, I mean, really, if you think about it, you're in a position to be kind of a kingmaker. You know what I mean?
Well, I never thought of myself to be. I'm a very simple man. I don't think of myself as any kind of hero or anything like that.
Let me tell you though. I mean, you're viewed by many as a hero. I mean, you understand that.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of people that follow me, or I don't even I don't know how many people out there actually heard me speak or know about what I'm doing. There's a few, I guess. I'm not really sure about how many.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that you've, I'm not sure just what percentage of, the people in this country, are aware of who you are, but it's a growing number. I mean, you've kind of set the tone for pro-freedom police chiefs and pro-freedom sheriffs. Or you've gone a long way to help doing that, and that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And the last thing we want really is a confrontation between the people and the government. And I'm of the mind that probably there's no real reason for us to have a physical confrontation because in spite of the fact that we have so many unconstitutional organizations, especially in the intelligence community and especially in the federal police community, in spite of that fact, most of the people that I've met in these organizations have been very pro-freedom. So ultimately,
I've been contacted by chiefs of police from all over the country.
Oh yeah,
and they applaud me for my efforts, and but they are worried about their jobs.
Oh sure.
They won't come out publicly and say, "Yeah, we stand with you, Mark." We can't say we'll say that off the record, and we'll tell you that, but we can't come out publicly and do what you're doing.
Right.
I put my job on the line when I did what I did.
Yeah.
And so be it, whether I'm a police officer or not, or a chief of police or not, or a law enforcement officer, I did what I did because of what I believe in.
Yeah.
I did it for what my father fought for and what my grandfather fought for. And
I'm
I
into
don't want my
that,
kids
brother.
growing up in a society controlled by government. I want them growing up in a free society, make their own choices. If they want to buy a gun, it's their choice.
Yeah.
If they don't, that's their choice. It's not one that the government can say you can and can't. I don't agree with that.
That's it. That's it. No, but I mean, I think if it really came down to it, I think the majority of the people in the military, I think the majority of the people in the intelligence community, and I think the majority of people in the police, with the exception of some of the more corrupt departments, I think that they would, refuse to carry out any order that would involve confiscating guns or anything like that. Now, I can't speak for 2-3 generations from now, but
Exactly.
yeah, and that's really what we have to worry about. I think is education. So it's good that this is really rising to the public consciousness now as opposed to later. And
Exactly.
and it's really important to kind of set the parameters for the debate. I mean, there was a philosopher named Michael Foucault, and he came to mind to me when you were talking about when you were talking about the illegal guns, quote unquote, and how they're not illegal guns, that they're legal guns that are being used by illegal people.
Yeah.
It's really important to clarify the terms. When you let them manipulate the language, then you let them create advantages for themselves in the debate. So I like what you did there. It's very important to clearly define the terms and to not let the terms be manipulated by the other side.
Right.
So
I mean, you could build yourself a firearm.
Right.
For your own personal use. That's legal to do that.
Yeah.
It's not the gun. Just because it doesn't have a serial number doesn't mean it's an illegal gun. You can, by the rules that the ATF, and I don't agree with the ATF either. I think that's just an entity. They should defund the ATF as far as I'm concerned.
They should have defunded it after Waco.
You're absolutely right. I agree with you on that one. They're not but a bunch of jackbooted slugs.
Yeah.
And, under their rules, you're allowed to build your own firearm as long as you don't sell it. As long as you don't sell that gun, you're allowed to build your own gun, your own semi-automatic rifle. I'm not sure about the handguns because they changed their regulations so much, and I don't agree with none of those regulations. I don't think you should have to go through a 6-month waiting period to buy a gun with a barrel less than 16 inches.
When did that happen? When did that happen? Because, it wasn't always like that. Or is that a local?
That was, I believe that was passed when the Machine Gun Act, when they passed that, the NFA Act, I believe it was back in 1986, banning, making it illegal for anyone to possess a machine gun that is manufactured after 1986.
Right.
Well, they have the if you look back and see the 1902 Dick Act, if you research that, all regulations that regulate firearms is unconstitutional. And that goes back to 1902.
Wow.
That's the Dick Act. And so all these rules and regulations that they came out after 1902 are unconstitutional, and they need to be. The Supreme Court needs to overturn every one of them and defund and get rid of the ATF completely. I don't agree with those guys. Like I said, they're no good.
Yeah.
They abuse their power. Exactly. You bring up a good point. Look what happened down at Waco.
Yeah.
They murdered women and children. Our own government has murdered women and children.
Yeah.
Over what?
Yeah.
Over what?
Well, I can't reveal any sources, but I can tell you that some people that I've spoken to, the spirit of that time was, we're the federal government, so we do what we want, and we're going to make a point of doing whatever we want. And that was the spirit of that time.
They picked a fight with the wrong bunch of people down there, and unfortunately, they burned them to the ground. Our own government had murdered children.
Yeah.
It's
it's incredible.
It sickens me. And then you have the other incident with Ruby Ridge there, where that poor man's family was assassinated. He got shot. His son was killed. He even killed the dog.
And what is that? Like, they killed the dog.
They even killed the dog. Yep.
I mean,
Randy Weaver. He even killed the dog.
Yeah, that's
he was awarded millions of dollars because they were wrong. Just like the survivors of Waco. I think there was 14 survivors from Waco, and they were awarded. They charged them with everything under the sun, and all 14 of them were acquitted. Every single one, and they were awarded millions and millions and millions of dollars. And not that money brings anybody back.
Right.
But it should have never happened to begin with.
Right. Well, if you win one court case, you can win 1,000 court cases. It's all about setting the precedent. So, I mean, that's definitely a good thing. But since we're on the subject of the ATF, as you know, and you mentioned this about the fully automatic weapons, that private citizens are not allowed to own them without a Class 3 firearms license, which, as you're aware, is very difficult to obtain. Now, I went on the ATF website some time ago, and I found out that they classify assault rifles as machine guns, or at least they did.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you think this represents? Yeah. Do you think this represents a push to classify assault rifles as Class 3 firearms?
I believe they're going to try it. That was one of my first concerns after this shooting. I heard I'm very good friends with a lot of good pro-gun people and organizations, and I called a couple of my friends up, and I said, I heard a couple of things that they might be trying to reclassify semi-automatic rifles into a Class 3 weapon, which will require you to go through the ATF, FBI, state police background check for, it's like at least a 3 to 6 month process. You have to get fingerprinted, picture taken, the chief of police needs to sign off on the paperwork, and then they'll decide if you're allowed to have this gun or not.
Yeah.
I see that could be coming down in the future, but again, it's unconstitutional. The ATF doesn't have the power to regulate any firearms. I don't care who says what. It's not in the Constitution. The Constitution is the law of the land, not what these 11 or 12 people or 9 people up on the Supreme Court give their opinion.
Yeah.
They just give an opinion, and everybody was set to believe that the Supreme Court, after their ruling, is the law of the land. No, it's not. The Constitution is the law of the land.
Yep.
Right? And I don't need these life-appointed tyrants, if you want to call them, in black robes, sitting on a bench looking down at us as peasants, telling 300+ million people, well, what we say you must abide by. I have a big problem with that.
Well, I mean, and here's another thing too. I mean, you look at it back to a philosophical standpoint. I mean, you have a constitution, and then you have a government that's supposed to follow the constitution. Well, if the government doesn't follow a constitution, well, that damages the legitimacy of the government.
Correct.
You know, it's that undermines the government itself. You know, and at some point it becomes a gang. You know, and I wouldn't go so far as to say that we're there yet, but I mean, we do seem to be moving in that direction. You know.
Well, I truly feel that they have, since this man and has won an election, his second term, he has picked up the ball and has run down the field full sprint, and he is bound and determined not to stop. And how dare anyone who speaks out against him? Because what he says, and let's not make no mistake here, he's a tyrant. He's a dictator tyrant. You know, I truly believe that. He comes out and says that he's not a dictator. He's a dictator. There's no ifs or buts about it. The stuff him and his administration are doing, and even the president prior to him, the stuff that they did, I don't agree with. And they were dictators.
Well,
so this guy has just taken it to a whole new level. He's taken it to a level I've never seen in my lifetime. Nor would I ever thought I will see in my lifetime or my children's lifetime.
Well, I mean, I think he's going to go down as the most unpopular president in the history of the United States. You know, really.
He needs to be impeached and thrown off and thrown out.
I think there is an excellent case for impeaching this man. I would agree with you there. I think there's an excellent case for impeaching him, and for those out there who are pursuing that and trying to pursue a movement to get this guy impeached, go full steam ahead, guys. Keep going. You know, it needs to at least be tried. You know, it needs to be brought to Congress, and Congress doesn't have that much legitimacy either these days. But
no, I mean,
we got to do something. I mean, I'm glad Ted Cruz is there. I'm glad Rand Paul is there. But by and large, you know, we don't have a whole lot of really principled legislators in the federal government, unfortunately, at least not from my perspective.
They'll try and they're a pack of thieves.
Yeah.
They'll tell you anything you want to hear to get your vote. They'll take a piece of bread, or they'll take a chunk of coal and try and sell it off as a black diamond to you. You know.
Yeah, I bet you've encountered that a lot in your line of work, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You see all the signs.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it just amazes me how these people can call themselves Americans. You know, they're far from it. They're communists. They need to be thrown out of the country, if you ask me.
Well, they're at least very opportunistic socialists.
You're absolutely right. I agree. I agree on that.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, at the very least, they are that. They might not want Stalinism, but they sure as hell want something, you know, pretty close to European-style socialism, and they will model it according to the needs of whoever will pay in the most. At least that's the perception. You know.
Look at Cyprus, where the government went in and took, a huge percentage of their people's money right out of their banks. And you know what? Cyprus is an unarmed nation.
You don't say.
They took the guns off them a long time ago. They took the guns off them, just like they did in Ireland, just like they did in Scotland, just like they did in England, just like they did all over the UK, Europe. Disarm their people.
Well, I'm sure they'd like to try it here.
And I'm telling you, brother, that's what's coming. They are going to try a gun grab. They're going to try and disarm. You know, when you have the Department of Homeland Security buying billions and billions of rounds of ammunition on a dime.
Yeah, along those lines. Along those lines, to be more specific, how do you see things playing out? Because you mentioned you mentioned the billions and billions of rounds and DHS and this, that, and the other, and our government's attitude towards Second Amendment issues. What do you see coming down the pipe, and what are you prepared to do about it?
I tell you what, brother, if they come out, if I'm ordered by anyone to disarm the American people, the uniform's coming off. And I will not be standing on the line with those guys. I will be standing on the other side with the freedom. I'll be standing with freedom before I fight for tyranny. I can tell you that right now. I'll fight against it.
Roger that,
and
Colonel
may God
Kessler.
have mercy on their souls.
Roger that, Colonel Kessler.
I hear you, brother.
Yeah. Well, how many other sheriffs? You mentioned that some of the other sheriffs have vocally joined you, and some of the others have, expressed that they appreciate what you're doing, but aren't willing to risk their job over it. How many sheriffs have done one, and how many sheriffs have done the other?
The best information I can give you to find out those stats will go to Sheriff Richard Mack's website, cspoa.org, and there's a list of sheriffs there. I think there was 390 sheriffs, and I'm the only police chief on it.
Okay.
I was the first in the country to come out publicly, nationally, in defense of the Second Amendment, and since my stance, there's 390 sheriffs followed suit. Now, I'm different than a chief, or I'm different than a sheriff. Sheriffs are elected. I'm appointed.
Right.
So
a
lot of these chiefs,
who are you appointed by?
A lot of these chiefs of police are very, very cautious. They don't want to lose their paycheck. They don't want to lose their job. But they agree with me. But they're not going to stick their neck out where their council is either democratically controlled or republicly controlled. They're not going to do that. They're not going to make waves. Where I don't, they could have fired me when I did what I did. I sat down with my council president and I told him, you need to think long and hard about the oath you've taken before you vote on this Second Amendment preservation resolution. You need to think long and hard about why you're here and the oath you've taken and the Constitution that you took an oath to defend. And it passed unanimously. And since then, brother, it's spread like fire all across this country.
Oh, yeah. We all know the story.
It's just been amazing. It's truly been amazing. And my intentions, that was the last thing, my intentions weren't to go personally with anything. It's just, I wanted to do something for my community, for my constituents, for the people that I serve and protect.
Sure.
Say, you know what? We don't care what the federal government's going to say. Or the state government. We will retain the right to keep and bear arms in my borough that I work for, no matter what.
Yeah.
You just can take your draconian laws and shove them, because we're gonna nullify them here in Gilbertson Borough. And boy, I tell you what, it just was once that word got out, it just went viral.
Oh yeah.
Overnight, it went viral.
And look at it. If you look at the previous American Civil War, I mean, there was some moral ambiguity there. If you really look at it, it's hard to say that one side was right and one side was wrong. They were both wrong in their own ways. If they push for a civil war this time, I really think it's going to be a tough sell for them. I really think there's a whole lot less moral ambiguity. There's a whole lot less things that they can latch onto. I think they're going to have a much harder time, And plus, it's endemic. I mean, the side that they're fighting against, it's not state against state. It's gun owners versus, police and military and intelligence that are anti-gun. And, my impression is the police and the intelligence people and the military that are anti-gun tend to be the kinds of people that have very marginal experience with gun. You know what I mean? I think I think they're gonna have a much harder time if it really comes down to that. Not that I want to push for that. I mean, obviously that would be a last resort.
Exactly.
It would be.
Yeah, nobody wants violence.
Nobody does.
I don't want to see any kind of violence in any way, shape, or form. I'm not calling for violence or anything like that. You know, I started an organization called the Chief Kessler's Constitutional Security Force. It can be found at chiefkessler.com. We also have another site. It's called oathbreaker.us.
Yeah, I saw that link on your site.
Yeah, people can go and put on the list oath breakers. You know, I don't care if they're Republicans or Democrats. If they go against the Constitution, boom, they have a list. We're on the list for being patriots from the Southern PAW or the Southern Law. I guess you can want to call them the Southern PAW, the Southern Law Poverty Center.
Right.
You know, all these patriot groups that people that just love their country.
Yeah.
You know, and they put us on a list. Now we have a list. The American people, the patriots, have a list for the people who are anti-Americans, who are oath breakers.
Brilliant. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, tonight I'll go ahead and write an article about oath breakers because I find that idea hilarious and awesome. And then tomorrow I'm going to, post this interview on YouTube and write an article about it as well, along with, the other links that you mentioned that are on your site. But I'm going to do one about oath breakers tonight because, that just really appeals to me. So I noticed that you started an organization called the Constitutional Security Force. Now, I understand you have some there might be some OPSEC concerns about talking about the details of this. But what can you tell me in terms of its mission, its intent, and its capability?
Our mission is to protect and defend the Constitution.
Amen.
Period. There's no ifs or nuts about it. You can go on chiefkessler.com and click on CSF mission statement link to give you our mission statement, what you need to do, our bylaws, read the bylaws, what we want to do. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring everybody. There's so many groups out there. I'm trying to bring them all underneath one umbrella.
Sure.
Constitutional Security Force. We're going to offer them training through professional trainers. FastTactics.com out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is what we have just partnered with, who's going to run the firearm courses. And it's all voluntarily to go through these courses. We're not building a force to fight the federal government. We're telling the people, if you own firearms, we're going to show you how to use them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We're going to show you how to fire a gun.
Now,
we're going to show you the kind of training that I have to go through.
Yeah.
It's a lot different to shooting a paper target or shooting bullseye target than it is force-on-force training. There's a lot of people out there that own guns, but there's a lot of people that don't. When the STHF hits the fan, and there's bullets flying back at you, what are you going to do?
Now,
if you get mugged, if a mugger comes and you try and defend yourself and he's shooting at you and you shoot back, you're going to be able to defend yourself. You're going to be able to have that knowledge, that ability.
And chances are, with that kind of formal training, you'll be much better equipped to face him than he will be to face you.
Correct.
Chances are.
Absolutely. I mean, you have gangbangers all over the country killing each other and robbing and raping and murdering.
Expending.
We just had that little baby that was I believe it was a 6-month-old baby that was shot in the face by a gangbanger. I forget what state it was in. It was all over the news. It's just horrific.
Who does that?
We need an armed society is a free society.
Yeah.
We need people to be armed, and we need people to understand how to use their firearms. That's all we're trying to do. That's all we're trying to say. If you want to come to these courses, you're more than welcome. If you don't, you're more than welcome not to.
And I'm going to bring it back into the philosophical realm a little bit with this. When you talk about an armed society as a free society, as a matter of principle, the more responsible and powerful the individuals of a society are, the more capable they are with dealing with freedom, and the more freedom they're going to demand. So the more you empower the people, the more they're going to demand freedom.
Exactly. I'm not about trying to train people to go out there and be thugs.
Oh, no.
Hey, I went through this training course now, come and mess with me. This is not what it's about. It's about people that love their country, that believe in their country, that own firearms, and they want to learn how to use them on a tactical advantage or on a tactical level than going out and hunting.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot more dangers out there today than there was, 40 years ago. It could be a lot of things. You could be muggers or rapists.
Sure.
It's in the news all the time. Home invasions. You want to be able to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And the more training you have, the better you're going to be at it.
Now, I noticed there's I really hope I'm not diming him out, but I noticed that it's associated with somebody known as J. Smith. Now, that's not the J. Smith from Spartan Tactical, is it?
Who's associated with that? I'm not sure where you're...
Okay, well, all right. Well, John Smith is. He's... At least I believe that's, I'm pretty sure that's his name. He goes by John Smith. That's probably not even his real name. I mean, well, never mind.
Is he a trainer? Or
He started it. He started the organization.
Which was Fast Tactical? Or Fast Tactics?
Yeah, I think so.
No, this company, they're out of, one name is Joe, and one guy is, there's two owners, Joe and Justin. They're phenomenal guys. They're only about 3 years old in the corporation. It's called fast-tactics.com. That's how you spell it. FAST /tactics TACIS .com. And they are absolutely phenomenal men. They're about 3 years into this. And they own their own company. They have a 28,000 square foot facility for force-on-force training. They have access to ranges. They're really good guys. They're really decent guys.
Amazing.
Their first meeting is going to be April 6th in Frankfort, Pennsylvania. They can find the information on the chiefkessler.com website. It's an open public meeting. Anybody who wants to attend can attend. We encourage it. We're going to hammer out the details for the training courses with Joe and Justin from Fast Tactics. And, we're going to take it from there. It's a great organization, and the more people we get on board, the better it is. It's for all of us.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. So would you say that the best way to get in touch with you is to visit your website?
Yep, visit the website.
All right, why don't we plug that one more time? Chief Kessler, is that one word?
Yep. ChiefKessler.com.
Kessler.com. That's ChiefKessler. Chief Kessler, one word. KESSLER.org, you said. Or .com. .com. I'm sorry. .com. ChiefKessler.com. So go visit that website and check him out. Link up with this guy. Okay, before I go, I just want to open the floor to you and let you talk about anything you want to talk about. Go ahead and close out any thoughts that you have in your head. What else would you like to talk about?
Well, the only thing I'd like to say is everybody needs to do something. Yep. No matter how big or small it is, no matter how much resistance you get, no matter how many times they keep knocking you down, you need to stand back up. You need to defend your country, and you need to defend your freedom, not only for yourself, your family, but the next generation, because we are in a position right now where our freedom is at stake.
Yep.
Not only because of the crushing debt, but the threat of disarming our nation. Once we are disarmed, how do we defend ourselves? They can do whatever they want, and they're pretty much doing it right now, but the only thing stopping them, keeping them somewhat at bay, is the Second Amendment.
Yes.
Because we're an armed society, and they're trying to disarm us, so we all need to band together, and we all need to do something, no matter how big or small.
It has been an absolute honor to speak with you, and I look forward to interacting with you in the future, and absolutely the best of luck in your endeavors, and God bless you.
Thank you,